All right, welcome to today's Alliance Virtual 2020 Community Discussion. My name is Carol Valora, and I would like to welcome everyone and thank you all for attending. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. This is going to be a discussion, so we just want to make sure that everyone's on mute. If you have a question, please ask that question in the Q&A box found in your Zoom dashboard. Make sure all submitted questions and comments are appropriate, professional, and related to the content. If you have any technical difficulties, please use the chat feature to let us know. This session is being recorded and will be available to access on the conference website later this week. Now I'd like to go ahead and pass it over to Jacob Thomas, and he'll get us started with the panel. Thank you.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon or morning, wherever you are, depending on your time zone. Glad that you're able to be here at this session titled Mission Modern Campus, Demystifying Digital Transformation. As it was said earlier, there's opportunity for you to post your questions. Somewhere along the way, toward the second half of this session, I will be introducing the panelists whom you're able to probably see at this point. And they will be sharing their stories as well in the context of this topic. And if you have questions specific to them at that point, feel free to post their name and refer to their name as the question is for them. And that could be addressed that way as well. So with that said, let's get started. I'm going to just go ahead and share my screen. Let's just make sure that it's coming through first before we proceed. Okay. Haley, can you confirm you can see the screen, or one of you? Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So technology keeps evolving, and it's rapidly evolving. And the cloud, which has been a common term over the last decade and has been there for almost more than a decade, actually, has been around, and across the industries beyond higher ed, cloud has been a technology that institutions and businesses have been implementing. Now, what's new and emerging and catching up really fast beyond the cloud are what the topic of this session is, which is the digital enablement of the operations and the businesses and the institutions. And these technologies are like artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT or Internet of Things, robotics or RPA, robotic process automation, and such. And more importantly, we find that for all these new and emerging technologies, the cloud is the basis and the foundation for it, for these rather. And so what we know that we've seen this, right? Typically industries outside of the higher ed that compete in the global marketplace very aggressively, they usually become the early adopter of these emerging technologies. Finance, pharma, life sciences have already implemented the cloud, and they've gone beyond the cloud and are in the forefront of these new and emerging technologies such as the artificial intelligence, blockchain, and such. And what's really impressive is that some of the use cases that has been applied in those industries can be brought over to the higher ed and are very applicable in higher ed. And part of this conversation today is to look into those opportunities as to what are these new and emerging technologies that could be applied in the higher ed space. And hopefully you will pick up some there, and if there's a need for further conversation, in-depth conversation around that, there's always follow-ups available. So the goal of this session is, while we address those technologies now, the new and emerging technologies that are applicable to cloud, well, let's first set the context as to how is this fitting in the higher ed industry. What might be a well-known problem or even a crisis for higher ed industry? How do we address it? And how do we address it first, specifically with the cloud, and then further, how digital enablement could really solve much of the problems that we are currently facing in the industry. So, and then followed by that, we will go into the discussion with the panelists. Rather, the panelists themselves will have some content to present in terms of what's happening in their respective organizations. Quickly introducing myself, my name is Jacob Thomas. I'm EVP and Managing Partner at Drivestream. My role has been all along to be provide strategy, thought leadership, and content such as this that you're going to hear today across industries. And over the last 20 plus years has been primarily in looking into new technologies and advising CIOs, CHROs, and CFOs, specifically these three areas, around technology and the application of technology for business applications. So with that said, let me go to the agenda here and drop in three chunks here: challenges and trends in academia, digital transformation imperative to address those challenges, and then the discussion and presentation by our panelists today. So what are the challenges looming the higher education industry? These are things that you already know quite well. Is just something that is for us to repeat here, just to bring the context in. First of all, the rising cost of education. If you look at these cartons here, it speaks for itself. The student has got loans, got debt, and there is also the same student is dealing with hikes in tuition. And that is naturally happening, or obviously happening, because the institutions are also in need of increased revenue to be able to afford and accommodate the various needs of the incoming student population. And at this point, it seems that roughly, this is the latest from the data that we have received, is that roughly $1.5 trillion is in student loan debt. This is the second highest debt in consumer debt following the mortgage industry. So literally, we are talking after buying a house, people are trying to pay off the debt for college education. All right, with that said, let's go to the next one. The second problem, having said the rising cost of education, is the falling enrollments of new students. Students coming in, if you look at this graph from 2008 to now, recently, 2019, you see the declining enrollments of students into colleges. As of recently, only 34% of universities and colleges have met their targets of new student enrollments. And this is a common theme recurring in most institutions. We have very high college dropout rates in the United States. While the number of students applying for college and starting out in college, US still is leading, but the number of people coming out of college successfully is severely declining, and is right now at the standing 20th in the world rankings. So here's the quick representation of the student success rate in terms of the number of students taking time to graduate. It looks like roughly 6 years, and that's only half of the student population who graduate in about 6 years. The remaining either move out into another institution and try to complete it, and about 1/3 literally just drop out eventually. So we got that success rate problem. Now, here's the contrast. While this is happening, we got roughly 65% of the job market demanding for higher education, demanding for advanced degrees. And that's changed over the years. If you look at this next graph here, what we're seeing here represented by the blue section of the graph on the left-hand side in 1973, compare that with most recent one, 2020, the blue is showing you much larger percentage of people needed with advanced degrees to satisfy the current job market demands. So the physical skills that were needed back in the 70s and the 80s is not really anymore needed because of the advancement of technology and replacing with automation and efficiency and so on. So the demand for physical skills right now, literally is just a good vision to be able to look at the devices that are being proliferated, if you will, all over the place. So at this rate, the need for higher education is even more and more, and it's only going to increase because the next wave of technology that we're going to talk about, the digital enablement, is only going to make this even more need for students coming out with applying cognitive skills and such, and analytical skills, as opposed to the need for physical skills. So what is the impact of all this? The impact of all this is that it's roughly about between 2015 and 2019, roughly 1,200 campuses have been closed. This is coming up in the Chronicle. This is talking about the America's college closure crisis. About 500,000 students have been displaced by college closures. So it is certainly impacting the industry. And I'm very likely speaking to an audience who knows about this and are probably experiencing this in their respective institutions. So with that said, in summary, here's the situation. We got, there's all kinds of challenges, but if we took all of those and categorize them, it falls into these three represented by the gray bars. In summary, rising cost of education, falling enrollments, and completion rates by students that is worrisome. Now, in contrast, we got a job market that is demanding for a successful student coming from a higher education institution. Now, if we take care of these three, the top three, it will naturally solve the job market demand. So we need to, the institution is looking to reduce cost, number one. Can't keep increasing tuition costs to reduce overall costs. Are there other ways, other opportunities where we can reduce the cost for the institution, thereby giving a break to the students to be able to apply and reducing rather the tuition cost, and find other ways to do that, and then make the education experience appealing for them and inviting for them so that they will be flocking and rushing to apply and enroll. And at the same time, make it, while they're enrolled, keep a good tab at them, keep nurturing and feeding the student needs in a way that is motivating to continue and come out successfully. So if that's done, here's the panacea, or rather, what is the solution? What are we seeing in terms of what is trending in the academia in terms of addressing this industry problem? So if you look at what we talked about is the opportunity to reduce cost. And if you look at an institution's cost, there are three major areas. You got physical assets, there's a fixed cost, you got the buildings, the facilities, and so on. Then you got faculty, you got to absolutely have them, people who are qualified faculty, who are qualified to teach, and we got to have them. You can't reduce their salary. Cost of with the inflation, everything is only going up. So you got to keep up with the inflation in terms of the salary and other compensation matters. So those two, you can't do much with it, although there are opportunities in those areas as well by becoming more efficient with online learning and all those things that we're talking about. But here is a core operational problem that could be dealt with without making a major impact to physical assets, if you will. And that we see that operations provides the best opportunity. This is based on the trends that we've seen in the academia, best opportunity for cost reduction with the most feasibility for leverage and control. And what are these operations? We're talking about HR, finance, coming up with analytics and information technology, also dealing with technology associated with the facilities, that physical assets that you already have. There are operations associated with those that could be addressed, which can significantly reduce cost. So that's one area. Now, the second aspect that I mentioned was enhancing the student experience. So once you address the cost area, then you also at the same time want to look at making the college experience very appealing for the student. So the students are speaking about it in a very positive way, and they have such a positive experience that more and more students are applying. Now, how do we make sure that happens? First of all, making it appealing. So coming up with the whole admissions process that is catering to the current concern of the modern student. The current concern of the modern student is, if I pay all this money and go to this college, will I be in a job and have a career for myself that will pay for my living? That's the first question that they're addressing. Even though academics is an interesting thing for intellectual advancement, we're still talking about, at the end of the day, they need to be able to earn a living after having spent this money. So that whole admissions process with personalized interactions, after going through the acceptance and helping them through this financing, which can be the whole FAFSA process can be horrendous and is horrendous today. I have a college student right now, as a parent going through that process myself, has been a long and drawn out process. Can that be automated? Can that be made more efficient? And there are ways to do that with technology, and we have seen colleges do that. So student financing, student engagement. We got once they're in the campus, how does the institution, the faculty, the advisor stay engaged with a particular student on a one-on-one basis and cater to and facilitate their educational needs with that. It's not scalable to do at one-on-one basis if for an institution as it grows. You know, it's great to have the student faculty ratio as at the optimal level, but it still needs to be scalable. So with technology, these things are available. With artificial intelligence, it is available. So student engagement. And then once they go through the entire campus life, and once they come out of the college, continued connection with the alumni on an active basis. That entire life cycle of the student starting up an educational path all the way to establishing a career and beyond can all be handled as part of a single unified technological process. Thereby you have all the data concerning that one individual within your system to be able to follow through properly. So that's the student experience. Now, institutions attempting to effectively tackle these core challenges are not only going to survive in this crisis, but also be effective in leading and turning the curve. Okay, so we got institutions who have already started in this journey, some of whom are here on in this panel, and you will be hearing from them. And what we're seeing is that underlying all of this is the acceleration and consumerization of technology. As you can see, we live our lives with this device. If you can see, this is the smart device. I can do pretty much everything that I do today is out of this device, whether I have to buy, whether I have to communicate, whether I have to speak. I can be on, today I can't go on vacation, we're all locked down here, but if I went on a vacation, I can stand in front of the airport and do a selfie and post that on Instagram, and in an instant, my entire family and friends knows where I am without having to call everybody, here I am, and they get a picture. This is how we live our lives today. And the modern student expects to live that life that they live on a daily basis, whether they're shopping or doing whatever, when they walk into campus, to be able to interact with their institution in the same manner. All of a sudden, they shouldn't be able to drop the smart device and go into something else, brick and mortar, to be able to have their life. Why should the life change when they walk into the campus, or whether they interact in the campus from their home? So instant, uninterrupted, secure and mobile access to school system is simply expected by the modern student. Now, here's something I bring up all the time when I'm talking about technology. See, basic science class in elementary school or even mid-school, they teach about the 5 needs for survival for human beings. You need to have proper body temperature, you need to have water, oxygen, nutrients, and atmospheric pressure. If you got these 5, you can live. At minimum, that's what you need. You should be able to live. You'll survive. Now, what's happened is the modern student has one more thing that's needed for survival. It's this smart device. I have a 21-year-old at home, and the minute she misplaces her smart device somewhere, even for 5 minutes, she's literally gasping for breath. I'm gasping for breath if I miss this myself. This is no longer a millennial problem or younger kids problem anymore. This is a global issue across all ages. So it has become vital to life. Imagine this. We're all supposed to be at where was this supposed to be? In Chicago or Vegas? I forget, the multiple conferences. This alliance was supposed to be either in Chicago or Vegas, I forget. But wherever it was, we were supposed to be together. Imagine how our lives would be if we didn't have this connectivity now doing through Zoom during this lockdown. We would have all been really miserable. We would have gone back to primitive ages there, not being able to communicate. Even Zoom had a crash on Sunday, by the way. I don't know how many of you experienced this. Globally, Zoom had a problem. And churches and other things were going on, and services are going on Zoom. And I heard that everything stopped. So that's just Zoom. I mean, there are other technologies available. Today we're using Zoom here. So imagine live, even for that one day that Zoom crashed and a lot of events did not happen because of that. And so here we are, the need for being digitally enabled. In this lockdown, this pandemic has only made that even more real and inevitable for us. The sooner we accelerate to make ourselves digitally enabled, and that means it's not just about network connectivity and Zoom. Now we're talking about all these technologies coming together so that the end-to-end things that we do becomes as a natural workflow, not having to intervene manually, but it becomes a one smooth, efficient, seamless discrete transaction from one end to the other. Now, so what is the modern campus? We're talking about to become a digitally enabled modern campus. We talked about two things. First, reduce the cost so that you can take that cost that is being spent there and spend it on digitally enabling it without having to continue to increase the tuition, then thereby causing our own problem by not having, it's so expensive that students are not able to enroll. So address the saving costs by addressing the operational efficiency, and use that funding to enhance the student experience by investing there so that the students not only are motivated to enroll, but also are graduating on time because of the experience that we're giving them through the enablement of technologies. These are digitally immersed students having modern expectations. So we got modern systems, modern expectations, giving us modern campus. Now when you look at this, the purpose of this slide is exactly that, just to show a lot of things, not to necessarily read through all of the things, but the idea here is that when you look at this, look at the areas of operations, areas of activity that encompasses all of the campus. As much as we could put that in one slide, we have across multiple dimensions of the institution: human resources, finance, IT, data, security and compliance, admissions, students. You got student financing. You got everything in here. Now if you're going to make this a modern campus for digital enablement, you're talking about addressing all of these. And that's a daunting task to even look at this and say, where do I start with all of this? So you got to be strategic. The traditional way of looking at this is, okay, I'm going to have to analyze and get paralyzed, or rather analysis paralysis, by looking through every aspect of this. So what is happening? It becomes an overwhelming and daunting task. So what should I say? A boon here in disguise, although cloud was meant for something else, but what has happened here is the cloud brings the foundation, because you're not going to spend too much time on investing in infrastructure and other things, because it gives you a rapid way of establishing yourself with a foundation for digital enablement, and cloud brings that. And that's what other industries have started with. When they started with this in digital enablement, they started with cloud-first strategy for transformation. To transform a campus to modern campus, institutions are applying or adopting the cloud-first strategy. If you start with cloud, you will not necessarily make mistakes, is the idea, is the thought. And it seems that it worked that way. So adopting the cloud-first strategy means that even though the previous slide showed you an overwhelming myriad of things to deal with at multiple dimensions, but you start with the foundation cloud, you know that the others will stack on top of it without having to worry too much and doing too much of analysis, if you will. So why cloud first? The obvious things that I just explained earlier, which is it costs less compared to the traditional on-premise systems, maintaining a consistent working process. You are going to be current with changing regulations and compliance with changing requirements, because the cloud provides a way to continuously keep you updated and upgraded. Many of these upgrades that happened informally with previous platforms or on-premise platforms, you had to wait for like 6 months to a year, depending on the complexity of your institution, to get upgraded to the latest technology. And by the time you're done with the upgrade, you're already behind. You got all kinds of issues here. In the cloud, with the cloud, you are fresh and up to date over a weekend, if you will. And that's how that happens. Now, The most important point about this is that why cloud first? Because it sets the foundation for advanced digital technologies represented by that red sphere on the chart there on the slide. Okay, so the cloud's been here. The cloud has been here. The whole point about the last few slides was to make the point that if you start with cloud, you are setting yourself for a good foundation laid as the groundwork to be able to advance to the next technology. Here is the next wave of technologies that I mentioned earlier. This has been released by PwC study that they release every year about emerging technologies. Here are the 8 that have come out already, and this was a study as of last year, 2019. Artificial intelligence, augmented reality, blockchain, drones, Internet of Things, robotics, virtual reality, and 3D printing. Many of these you're already hearing in news, you're already seeing happen. And so here we are with this emerging technology. Now, how are these 6 going to be applied in the higher ed industry? We can't go through all of them, but I can walk you through a couple of these just to give you a perspective on kinds of use cases with these emerging technologies that can be applied. Number 1, let's take IoT or Internet of Things with higher ed. The whole facilities management, monitoring and building facilities remotely, providing personalized education with location-based services, knowing where the student is and providing them access to the information, educational content, libraries, restaurants, across all aspects of their lives, giving them personalized student experience in itself is a huge thing. Now, but let me talk about the next one, then I'll summarize that part. Student security. Now, Disney World already has this. If you put that band, which has information about an individual, using that band, you can go to all the sites at Disney World. You can, whether it's a restaurant to an event or the theme parks, whatever it is, applying the same technology for student security to access various facilities on a campus is also part of that. Now, a lot of these things are going to be further enhanced and changing here, given what the post-pandemic world looks like, even in an institution. So these things will change and evolve fairly rapidly. As we were preparing for this event, things changed. And some of these things have already become obsolete, if you will, right? So that's IoT. Second, what artificial intelligence. Now, the more we understand the type and pattern of students that are going into your websites and into institutions' website and applying and looking for information, the more information we gather about that student, that background, that context, where they're coming from, the demographics, the institution getting that intelligence gathered from the incoming student population out of curiosity is able to come up with matching programs, coming up with personalized learning paths, and also the student success. What is the pattern of data that can predict that this kind of pattern is now calculating via artificial intelligence as to what to predict about that particular student, as to where that student is going to go, and AI plays a big role in that. Normally, professors and faculty members are able to get that by analyzing each student, but that's not scalable. Artificial intelligence brings that. Next, here's an example of University of Adelaide in Australia using just one thing, chatbot, and they did this with Oracle platform, chatbot, for answering people's questions, because there is apparently that's how it happens in Australia. There is a day when this is their information. The news is released about who are the students who got into these different programs, and on that day, everybody is calling in, and everybody calls in because of the number of students who are calling into University of Adelaide. Sometimes on that day, they have to wait for an hour and a half to 3 hours for their turn. And the person receiving the call sometimes have to rush the student that they already have because they see the wait lines. So what they did was, for some of the normal questions, did I get it or not? Simple question can be answered by a chatbot. And so they implement a chatbot, and that reduced and only advanced questions get transferred to a tier 2 resource within the call center of that university. So All of this, now I'll move over blockchain as well. This is available for you to see, whether it's student records or digital rights management and learning marketplaces, all with using blockchain in higher ed. Now, the point of this is that chatbot in itself, discretely, is a huge takeaway for that university. But imagine that is part of a holistic system that is tracking the student from the admission all the way through graduation and beyond. Everything about that student, what is he signing up for, what extracurricular activities is he or she signing up for, who are his professors or her professors, all of that information, having access to that data. And if that data was in one single platform, then you're going to do a lot more than just the chatbot, because now you have more information about that student. So one of the important thing, and before I move on to the panelists here, final point I want to make here is that given these different technologies, just having these discrete technologies on its own, while great, is going to be exponentially effective if all of these converge into a single unified platform of information, instead of having to go to multiple sources to get that information. That is another big problem today. Even if you have technology, if they're not unified, then you're working towards trying to make these different technologies talk to each other. If they're all on a single platform and you have a common data architecture, then you got information about an individual, a person, a student, a faculty member, all available across all dimensions of your operations, available in a complete cloud suite. And in this case, Oracle seems to provide that. And Oracle does provide that. And one of the reasons why we have the panelists today is they've started this platform, they started this journey using the Oracle platform. And so that's the unified, complete cloud, unified platform story around having your HR, your finance, your supply chain, your student information systems, all of that within a single platform. So whether it is from student to finance to HR, you have a single global view or single institutional enterprise view, all within the same platform. With that, you will be able to successfully manage the multidimensional aspects of this modern digital campus. Now, with that said, I will now take a moment here to transition this by introducing these are Drivestream customers as well. These are our esteemed customers who have joined me today from Bank Street College of Education, from Ithaca College, and DePaul University. Glad to have Judy from Bank Street, Haley Harris from Ithaca College, and Bob McCormick from DePaul University this afternoon. Over the next 30 minutes, what I'd like to do, what we would like to do is, given this context that I just went through about modern digital campus, they have already started this journey. And they have started this journey. Some are in the process. Some have just finished the process. Some have been out there for a few months. But we'll get different varying perspectives on what this journey meant to them. And we will hear from them shortly. So first of all, I want to first introduce Ithaca College, Judy Johnson, who is the CIO of Bank Street. I'm sorry, not Ithaca, I meant to say Bank Street, sorry, my apologies. Judy Johnson from Bank Street College of Education, right in New York City. I remember starting on, when they just about to were contemplating this, Judy was right in the beginning of this journey, evaluating, assessing what is the right solution to take Bank Street College to the next level, at least starting with HR when it comes to cloud. It's the most risk-averse approach is to ultimately get to a fully digital campus. HR is a good starting point because of a smaller population you're dealing with before you expand it to others. So Judy has been very instrumental and has been leading that transformation at Bank Street College. And with that, I want to hand it over to Judy. Judy, thank you for joining us, and glad to have you. If you're on mute, please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead, and I will switch to your slide here. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks, Jacob, and thank you all for letting me speak today. So before we get started, I just wanted to say a little bit about Bank Street College. Unlike some of the other panelists, Bank Street is not only an education of higher ed, an institution of higher education, we are also a school for children. We have children's programs, and we also have a research and education arm as well. So a little bit about our school in general. We're a nonprofit educational institution founded in 1916. We're located in Upper West Side of New York City. We have about 850 full-time staff and faculty, and during periods, specifically during the summer, that can expand upwards of 1,200 people we hire for our summer camp. Our graduate school of education is about 500 students with 50 to 60 currently master's degree and certification programs, separate programs. We also have a continuing professional studies group. Most of our programs are online, or are on ground, and we just recently launched an online program, and that went live back in the fall. So we had a little bit of expertise going into the COVID-19 changes to going online that we were able to build on, but this is pretty new to us for our grad school. And our student to faculty ratio is pretty small. It's 6:1 for the grad school side. On the children's programs, we have a number of different programs. We are a private K-8 school for children with about 450 students. We run a family center, which is a mixed group for about 45 students. They are ranged in age from 3 months to 3 years. We have a summer camp that gets upwards of 500 students during the summer, a Head Start program. We were one of the first Head Start groups in the country, which is another 50 to 60 families. We run a Liberty Leads program, which is an after-school program for high school, or actually 5th grade to high school. And then we also run after-school programs. And then the research side, we have on the Ed Center, we have got a Center for Culture, Race, and Ethnicity. We have a Prepared to Teach, which actually is a program that supports the development of long-term strategies to establish sustainable streams of public funding for high school preparation, and the emotionally responsive practice and an Ed Prep Lab. So that's a little bit about the school itself. If you want to go to the next program.
Sure.
Thanks. So as Jacob mentioned, we actually started our cloud initiative with our HR. We chose HR because our current systems and although we were using a cloud application, believe it or not, prior to this, that application was not integrated with any of our other systems. We had discrete and manual processes from every aspect. We would have from hiring and recruitment, it was re-entry of data in the same application. The implementation that was done a number of years ago was not probably done the best it could be. So we were looking at a solution that would help us automate and eliminate the manual pieces of information and the different processes within the institution. We had not taken advantage of any kind of position management. So we really couldn't get a full-time, we had no idea like how many full-time people we had if you asked us, and we're not big, as you can tell, we're 850 full-time approximately. We couldn't give you a good full-time without going through all of like 3 or 4 different types of reports. We wanted to integrate our back-end processes, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to support not only the staff, but also like the back-end, the administrative people that were taking care of the application. We implemented core HR and benefits and payroll, time and labor in January. We just went live on the Oracle solution. I will tell you that Drivestream was our partner with this. We did a very quick implementation. It took us 5 years to talk about implementing. We made the decision in March. We kicked off in April, May timeframe, and we did go live with those 4 pieces, the actually in absence management as well, in January. We are still in our hypercare kind of working out the kinks. Doing okay. I mean, we're getting much better. I will tell you, we are small, like a small administrative staff, so it's been a lot, but we are getting there. We're looking at finishing up the recruitment and going live on the recruitment piece in the middle of June, and then performance and goals we'll implement sometime in the September or fall timeframe. So that's basically where we are. Some of the challenges that we faced during this was an accelerated schedule. Change management was really hard for us as well. So we had a lot of processes that needed to be looked at. We're small, but we had tons of customizations and unique ways of doing things, at least we consider to be unique ways of doing things. So there was a review of our current processes and trying to streamline And going from customization to configuration was a big challenge for us. And the team is doing really well, and Drivestream was a good partner in helping us get through all of that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Judy, for that. If anyone has questions for any of the panelists or myself, feel free to post that, and we'll start to address that as well. I will loop back with Judy after we're done with Haley and Bob here with the other two institutions in terms of the questions that we have for the panelists. I have for the panelists as well. So with that, next, I'd like to introduce Haley Harris, Vice President of Human Resources and Planning at Ithaca College, Ithaca, New York, that is. And Haley comes with background formerly at Yale University and Cornell University before joining Ithaca. And she brings in a lot of the HR experience from those universities as she joined recently, I would say fairly recently compared to our previous experience at Ithaca College. Ithaca has taken on a journey which you will hear more from Haley on multiple fronts, not just HR, but as well as other aspects of the operations beyond HR, which Haley will cover as well. Haley, glad to have you with us today. Please go ahead and tell us a bit about some of the initiatives at Ithaca College. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Jacob. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate today, and looking forward to share a little bit of our experiences from Ithaca College. So like Judy, perhaps I could start off by sharing a little bit about Ithaca College. We are a private, medium-sized liberal arts college located on an idyllic campus in upstate New York. We overlook Cayuga Lake and the other famous school on the other hill. We have a fairly small faculty to student ratio, 1:11, and a fairly large alumni base. What makes Ithaca College unique is that we have the School of Humanities and Sciences, which provides the liberal arts foundation, but then we also have 4 very well-known professional schools, which include the School of Music, the School of Business, the Park School of Communication, and the School of Health Science and Human Performance. And so it's a really unique combination for our students to come and explore professional degrees as well as a liberal arts education. We have about 1,600 regular employees, as well as almost 2,000 students on our student employment payroll. Our endowment is currently around $316 million, although that fluctuates on a daily basis. And we are largely a residential college. Over 71% of our students live on campus. So our journey, if you could go to the next slide, our journey to the cloud really began back when our current President Shirley Collado, took her post 3 years ago. And under her leadership and that of our provost, Leisure and Terry Cornish, they began a comprehensive strategic planning process, which resulted in the rollout of a 5-year strategic plan last year. And having these cloud-based systems was really critical to achieving our overall goals related to the strategic plan, because what we really needed was data. We needed accurate data so that we could make data-based business decisions and really move our overarching goals forward. So we began by implementing Oracle HCM. We went live with benefits, payroll, time and labor, absence in January of this year. We had actually implemented core HR and performance about 6 months prior. And we're currently in the process of also implementing the financial modules, and those are anticipated to go live in July. So you can see those listed there. That includes procurement and EPM. And so what this really allows us to do is to streamline complex business processes. We had a lot of pain points that we were struggling with, as you might imagine, with a legacy system. A lot of paper-based approval processes, a lot of manual processes, multiple entry points and edit constraints, really complex benefit structure, complex third-party vendor integrations. And so what that really had resulted in many ways, was bad data. And so having that data surfaced in the cloud is really helping us to get to where we want to be in that regard. And as Jacob already mentioned, using a cloud-based system is much more user-friendly, not only for the back office folks in HR, but our entire population, where we can, use the email and mobile approvals. And just this morning, I approved time away from my team straight from my phone, and that saves me time and effort from going into the system. Another benefit that this offers is really seamless integration of our various systems. We're really looking forward to being able to have the HR and finance systems in the same system so that they can talk to each other. And again, that will really just help to streamline our processes and improve our data. And overall, this will increase our operational efficiency and result in long-term savings, since we don't have to maintain the infrastructure and we can stay current with the modules that are being offered. And so while there was an initial investment, overall, this will reduce our long-term total cost of ownership. So in terms of some of the learning lessons that we've had from our implementation, I actually just began at Ithaca College just over a year ago. We were going to go live with HCM in July. I made the decision to postpone that to January. And one of the primary reasons for that is that we're very leanly staffed. And so we didn't have on the ground skills and expertise that we needed for a project of this size and complexity. And so Drivestream was really a key partner for us to help really find the right mix of on-site and offshore support to really help us get over the finish line. Another learning was to really think about your plans for that post-implementation optimization process in the very early stages of the project, because you do want to be able to realize the benefits of the investment that you've made and have a roadmap for how you'll want to continue to use the system and improve it over time. We're already starting to realize the benefits of this access to data and ease in reporting, particularly just responding to the current COVID-19 crisis, where, for example, when we had to send all the students home, we had to figure out which students had jobs, which ones were on work studies, so that we could figure out who we needed to provide financial support to. And I think that would have been very, very challenging in our older system. It was still challenging, but markedly easier utilizing Oracle HCM. And now, certainly, as we prepare for what will likely be a different reality in fall of 2020, particularly as we go live with the financial modules. Again, I think this will be key and critical to our success going forward as we manage these challenges. So we're looking forward, as I mentioned, to really realizing the full suite of the benefits, and we're very pleased with the results we've had with Oracle. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley. As Haley mentioned, at Ithaca College, they are looking both at ERP and HCM at the same time within a single platform, just to keep track of the situation of the COVID-19. As the students are all going back home, it's primarily a on-campus population that Haley mentioned. And as these students are sent back home, or asked to go back home because of the pandemic, who's got jobs, who doesn't, having information, that access to that information and data is critical. And if you have that data, one thing is about having access. The other thing is having that data that is already talking to other parts of the system, if it's part of the same system, right? So other parts of the operations, if it's part of the same system, I mean. So anyway, so that's one of the decisions that the different institutions are making, thinking strategically about how to look at entire campus holistically across all dimensions of the institution. DePaul University is another university that has taken on the same journey with multiple aspects of the operation, both HR and finance, and looking ahead also into student down the road. And with that, I want to introduce Bob McCormick, the VP of Information Systems at DePaul University. Bob oversees and leads a whole suite of technology initiatives at the university there in Chicago. And it was about a year ago, I believe, yeah, roughly about March of 2019, that Bob and team ventured out into this, the cloud, migrate to cloud for the core applications, specifically with ERP and finance and HCM from PeopleSoft to cloud. And so with that said, Bob, please take it over. Thank you for joining. Really appreciate it that we have you and your experience to be heard about this afternoon. So feel free. Go ahead.
Thanks, Jacob. I'll do my best to be brief so we can open up some chance for questions. So apologies to the attendees. I'll try and keep my language not speed up too fast, as it were. But let me just give you a little bit of background about DePaul University. These are pre-COVID statistics. So Jacob, if you could move on to the next slide. We were the largest Catholic institution in the country, which surprises most people. We're not the largest by brand, but we're the largest by student body. We hope that will still be the case post-COVID, but just like everybody else, it's quite an interesting ride at the moment. So as you can see from the statistics, we got a reasonably large student population and quite a diverse curriculum, over 300 undergraduate majors and graduate programs. Let's move on to the presentation, to the information about the cloud initiative. So as Jacob said, we are rolling out HCM and financials, and including PPM, EPBCS, all of the alphabet soup that comes with Oracle Cloud. We started March 2019. We were hoping to go live last January, January of 20, but we moved back the implementation to January or December of 20 with available for self-service. The reason we pushed back was we had 20 years of skeletons in our data closet. So we implemented PeopleSoft way back in 2000 and have been on that system ever since. And so converting that data was extremely difficult. I neglected to mention we did select Drivestream as our partner. They've been invaluable in helping us navigate this process, but it's been a strong journey. On the right side of this slide, you can see this is the story that we told ourselves about implementation. And I joked at the time we should get t-shirts made of this, but I was trying to create something sort of simple mnemonic for the implementation, and so we went with sort of ABCD go live. And so why are we doing it? We wanted to provide a better self-service experience for our stakeholders. We wanted best practices for business processes. We, just like everybody else, this is a moving train that we've hitched our wagon to. So we're looking at continuous process improvement, and like I think Judith and Haley, you both mentioned, we need that data for decision support. We got a pile of data already, and we've had the data warehouse for over a dozen years, but this will give us greater insight into our own operations, and that will be critical in the coming months and years for sure. And then Go Green is a term we stole from an implementation we did in another system, which was Slate. Some of you may have utilized Slate on your campuses. It's a recruitment system, and they use the term Go Green to say, keep the system vanilla, and that keeps the risks low. So you want full green light for implementation. So we're following that same methodology with Oracle Cloud. We're not interfering with it. We're changing ourselves to fit the system. And it was designed that way for a good reason. And so we want to keep our risks as low as possible. So a little bit about our implementation, and I'll hand it back to you, Jacob, and see if we got questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bob. Just before we go to some of the questions with the panelists here, are there anyone attending, any of the participants feel that they have a question? Feel free to post it on the chat box here, and then we can address that. If it's a longer involved question that you feel like you're having, you can still post it. We will be able to respond either by email or other ways to get back to you. And so in any of this. This is the four of us who are on this panel today. One has gone live recently. One's gone live with both ERP and finance, and the third, Bob and DePaul, as he just mentioned, is in the process of going live, or in the process of completing the implementation. So now this is all the start of a journey towards a digital campus, if you will. Now, one of the things that that Bob mentioned in his closing, as he was closing his comments, is that the idea of keeping it vanilla. And everyone who's gone through this process will be able to, I will acknowledge that keeping it as best as possible to adopt the processes that comes out of the box is key towards minimal troubles down the road, if you will. It's not that you should not, or you cannot. You can, but the only reason one would do that is to because you believe that something coming out of the box is not considered best practice for you. It is best practice coming out of the box. If there's something unique that you have within your institution that that has to deviate from what's delivered, that's when you go you customize to some extent, if you will. Now, with that said, Haley, I have just a quick point that you made earlier about change management. Many don't realize, this is across the board, that Drivestream's experience across the board with many customers, that it's cloud, it's rapid. Judy mentioned that we did it in like very few months compared to what would have taken on for several months or years in the case of on-premise, relatively speaking. We do it rapidly. While the promise of rapid implementation is there, or the benefit with cloud is there, there is another aspect that's a downside when it comes to such kind of implementation, which is the people keeping up with that change. Any thoughts you can provide on Ithaca? I know had an experience with that, and so did Judy. Any that you can help with with the audience here? Yes, it's cloud. Yes, it's digital. It can be done rapidly, but we're going to have to deal with the change management aspect of this. Feel free to comment. I will ask Haley to comment first, and if Judy has any thoughts on that.
Sure. So you're absolutely right. Change management is an issue. Sometimes change can be challenging in higher ed, sometimes slow to adopt new things. And so what we found to be key is to get out there early, way before you're ready to implement. Just start talking about the benefits that it has to offer, how individuals, faculty, staff, students will be able to benefit from the new system. We had frequent communications, and then as we got closer to implementation, a comprehensive training strategy where we really got out in front of each audience and got them in front of a computer and went through the various ways in which they would be utilizing this technology. We really had a great response once people got in there and figured it out. It's very user-friendly, and so it really is just that one initial challenge to get through the training, but it's important to get out there early and continue throughout your implementation.
Thank you, Haley. Judy, any thoughts or comments in terms of how people are dealing with at your institution?
I totally agree with everything Haley just said. One of the things that we did as well, in addition to all the communications, is we documented decisions. We did do a lot of process review, and there was a lot of initiative to hold on to the way we did things before. And one of the things that we found very helpful was to just document why we made a decision, always look and explain to the team why this would be better in the long run, and document it and move forward. So we had buy-in from the top at the very beginning as well, which helped with that change process with the internal team going through. The other thing that we found is that starting with the HR application, the core impact was on the back ends for the most part. The core changes were on the back end, which was a smaller audience. And then we did training to show people how to use the actual applications, and we've been going out with a lot of communications, a lot of training sessions for the end users as well.
Thank you, Judy. Bob, we are just about 30 seconds away here before we close. I would just, if you could comment on one thing. I know at DePaul, one of the, this is a challenge for every customer, but I know you have faced it right now, which is the whole aspect of converting data. Data is critical for the new system. Obviously, we need to get as much data as possible, but at the same time, working with data upfront would be one of the lessons I would say we have learned, or you have learned, in terms of being prepared for it, in terms of ahead of the project before you convert. Any thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah, just as you're planning your implementations on your own campus, just be aware that in our case, it's been 2 decades since we challenged any of the implementation decisions, and so we had this sort of tidal wave of angst, and so we have challenged our chart fields, we have challenged our departmental structure, and that all complicates the conversion. Do not underestimate the complexity of the conversion process. It is in our case enormous, but we are coming through the other side of it now, so that's good news for us.
Thank you, Bob. That is a key point for every time you start with a transformation project. You think about the data first on what we're going to do with it, because that becomes an inhibitor along the way. So, folks, thank you for attending and participating in our session today. My special thanks to the panelists and our guests who have joined me at this session. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Judy and Bob, for joining us. And if there's any follow-ups needed, feel free to reach out to us. And thank you again. Good afternoon.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Please take some time to go fill out the session surveys in the mobile event. You can find those in the session details of each session. Also, make sure you stop by our Virtual Solutions Center, support our sponsors that have helped support this conference, and you can set up one-on-one sessions with them. You can also view their demos, and they're also doing tons of giveaways, so make sure you check that out. And then lastly, I just want to thank all the panelists, presenters, Jacob. You guys were all great in this session, and I appreciate you. And then also all the attendees for joining us today. All right, thanks so much. Enjoy your intermission, and hopefully we'll see you this afternoon.
Thank
Bye.
you.